Routine morning, a Dunkin' parking lot, and a secret that has been rotting under Albany's skin for almost 3 decades finally explodes. If you think this is just another cold case, you are not ready. Because in this case, the victim never got a name from his own mother. The city had to give him one. And the woman walking out of that coffee run is the one who ended his life. If you are here, you do not believe in coincidences. So do it right now before the algorithm buries this. Subscribe right now, turn on all notifications, and stay until the end. Because this is not only about one woman, one baby, or one city. This is about what happens when a society leaves someone so alone that they decide the easiest thing to erase is a newborn life. And it is about what happens when, 27 years later, the past knocks on the window while you sit behind the wheel with a paper cup in your hand. You sit in the back of a gray, unmarked car. Your hands are shaking. You are 50-something. You have a job, a routine, 2 grown kids, a car that needs gas, and an old elevator at work that always gets stuck. You do not have a criminal record. You are not on any wanted poster. You have lived in this city long enough to complain about the weather in September and to joke with officers that know you are not being kidnapped, right? That is exactly how Carrie Mazuka walks into her own reckoning. She thinks it is a traffic stop, maybe a turn signal late, maybe speeding, maybe nothing. She asks if she's getting a ticket. She asks if she can text work. She worries about being late to her shift. Meanwhile, the officers are thinking about something else entirely. A baby, found in a park in the late 1990s, wrapped in cloth, left in the grass near a statue, burned, unclaimed, buried under a headstone with a name the city invented, Times Union. That is the collision in that parking lot. One woman who has convinced herself that she moved on, and a group of detectives who never did. They get her to the station. They sit her down in that tiny elevator that feels like a closet. They take her into a room that looks like any other interview room in any other American police station. Fluorescent lights and hollow walls. And then comes the line that flips everything. We have a bit of a mystery on our hands. They do not start by accusing. They start by reading her rights and by talking about a new kind of investigation. Something out of those shows she claims she never watches. Genealogy. The science that turns spit in a tube and forgotten family trees into a compass pointing straight at a stranger's life. WAMC. Investigators went to third-party genealogy databases, built a tree from fragments of DNA taken from the infant, and followed the branches until they reached her family. Not her face, not her fingerprints, her bloodline. They tell her this clearly. The DNA from that baby links to your relatives. She does what most people do when a secret feels close but not yet fatal. She talks. She explains her family, parents, sister, ex-husband, 2 kids, extended relatives. She says no one is missing. She insists there was no hidden pregnancy, no baby that appeared and disappeared. She answers the question about how many times she's been pregnant. Twice. Only twice. 2 kids. That's it. If you watch that interview, there's a moment where the room feels like it's holding its breath. You can almost hear the weight of the silence as the detectives circle back again and again to the same place. If it's not them, then who's left? She laughs nervously. She says she babysat a lot growing up. She says she loves kids, that her pregnancies were easy, that she was the town babysitter back in Roxbury, as if loving children in one chapter erases what you did in another. And while she tries to push that thought away, the detectives pull the past right back onto the table. To understand why this moment matters, you need to go back with them to that September morning in the late 1990s. Washington Park, Albany, tulip beds, curved paths, the statue of Moses looking out over a city that never really slept right after what happened there, Times Union. Park workers show up early. They expect trash, maybe bottles, maybe nothing at all. Instead, they find something wrapped in burnt blue cloth lying in the grass near the road. A newborn infant. Lifeless. Abandoned. The umbilical cord is still attached. The burns are obvious. The shock is immediate. Times Union. The city does what the mother never did. They give him a name. They call him Baby Moses Washington, after the statue and the park where he was left. The case hits the local news. People are horrified, then outraged, then exhausted in that brutal sequence that always follows a crime like this. Who could do that? Why would someone do that? How did nobody see or hear anything? Detectives go door to door, follow tips, interview doctors and nurses, look for a young woman who suddenly isn't pregnant anymore. Nothing holds. Forensic tools at the time are limited. The trail goes cold. But here's the part the public rarely sees. For the officers and the detectives who handle that tiny body, who stand near that flower bed with the smell of burned cloth in the air, it never really becomes a cold case. It becomes a wound. A question that barges into their minds at random. Driving home. Walking in the same park years later. Hearing a baby cry in a supermarket aisle. WNYT. The city gives the baby a funeral. People who never met him show up. They cry for a child they didn't know, a life that barely started. Times Union. Meanwhile, the person responsible quietly builds a normal life. New jobs, a new address, 2 other children who will grow up believing their mother is just that. Mom. There are no sirens in the background of their birthdays, no flashing lights in the family photos. Until investigators get tired of the word cold and decide to heat the case again with a different fire: advanced DNA work. Fast forward to the 2020s. Forensic genealogy has already solved other cold cases. Police in Albany decide it's time to drag baby Moses back into the lab, run new tests, and send the genetic profile into the world of family trees and distant cousins who spit in a tube for a hobby. WAMC. The hit does not say, "This is the mother." It does something more unsettling. It draws a circle around a family. From there, investigators move like they always do, slowly at first, then all at once. They take trash from outside houses. They get quiet court orders. They collect DNA from relatives who think they're just helping rule themselves out. Times Union. They show up at the sister's home miles away and ask for a cheek swab. They show up at Carrie's place and do the same. Now pause for a second and look at the picture from above. On one side of the city, a 50-something woman is getting dressed for work and planning nothing more dramatic than coffee and a shift. On the other side, detectives are sitting on a result that tells them this: the forgotten baby in that park is not just linked to her family, it's hers. They do not say that yet. They plan the contact, they choose the Duncan, they pick the moment. Because when you're about to tell someone that the secret they buried in 1997 has finally grown a mouth and is ready to scream, you don't knock lightly. Back in the interview room, they finally show her a photograph. They warn her first. They tell her it's rough. They say they're sorry, but she has to see it. It's the infant's body, burned, tiny, left in that park. Times Union. She reacts like any human being would, even a guilty one. She flinches. She says it's horrible. She says she has goosebumps. She calls it disgusting. She imagines all the safe places where a baby can be surrendered instead.
He asks again, "Are you sure you were only pregnant twice? Are you sure there was never another baby?" The mask cracks. It does not explode. It fractures, then splinters, then falls. First, she admits what she has denied for almost an hour. I did it. No legal jargon, no excuses. Just those 3 words, delivered like someone finally dropping a weight they carried for too long and too softly. But saying, "I did it," is not enough. The system does not run on confessions alone. It runs on details. So the detective asks the question that matters most. What happened? This is where the case moves from mystery to confession, and from confession to something darker. She says she was in her 20s, living near Washington Park, in an apartment with an old bathtub, the kind you see in every upstate city, Times Union. She says she was pregnant and either did not fully accept it or refused to deal with it. No prenatal appointments, no baby shower, no hospital plan. She gives birth alone, at home, in that bathtub. The baby is born alive, not a rumor, not a stillbirth, an actual living newborn, Times Union. For a while, she tries to soften the responsibility. She says the baby might have drowned. She blames the water. She suggests he died on his own and that she just panicked and did not know what to do with the body. But the autopsy does not agree. There is no sign of drowning. There is no trauma that explains a natural death, Times Union. So the detective pushes again. If there is no accidental explanation, what is left? The answer sits in the space between his questions and her breathing. Eventually, she fills that space. She says she put her hand over the baby's mouth and nose. She says she pressed. She knows what suffocation is. She admits she understood that applying that kind of pressure would stop a newborn from breathing. She agrees, in the end, that she meant to do it. In legal language, that is intent. In human language, that is a choice.
That is powerful. It also raises the kind of questions we cannot duck. How far should the state go with genetic data? How safe are those family trees we upload for fun? What do we owe to victims when the tool that finally brings justice is the same tool that scares people about privacy? In the baby Moses case, most people will say the trade was worth it. A child who died without a name now has an identity and legal recognition of what happened to him. The mother who erased him now has to answer, day after day, to an institution that will not forget. But all of this only matters if we do something with it. So, here is the uncomfortable call-out. If you ever hear someone joke about not knowing they were pregnant, do not treat it like comedy. That denial kills. If you live in a place with safe haven laws or anonymous surrender sites, and you do not know how they work, look it up after this video. Talk about it. Normalize it. Because silence is exactly the space where tragedies like this grow. If you see a friend, a coworker, a neighbor, spiraling, disappearing, hiding their body under baggy clothes and dark jokes about being fine, do not just scroll past their life like another post. Ask. Offer information. Offer a ride. Offer anything that interrupts the idea that the only option is a bathtub in a park. And if you are the one who feels trapped, who is watching this with a knot in your stomach because some part of this feels too close to your own life, hear this clearly. There is always a better option than silence and death. There are hotlines. There are hospitals. There are people who will take that child safe and alive, no questions asked. You might be judged. You might be scared. But you do not have to become the next case solved by a DNA match 27 years from now. Baby Moses never got to decide anything. Not his birthday, not his name, not where he was buried. Every decision was made for him, first by the person who killed him, then by a system trying to honor him. What you do with this case is the first thing he cannot be denied anymore. You can let it be a sad curiosity from some city you don't live in, or you can let it be what it should have been from the beginning, a warning flare. Secrets do not stay buried. DNA does not forget. And there is no vacuum cleaner strong enough to clean a conscience that has decided a baby's life is just one bad memory. If you do not want to look away from this kind of truth, if you want more cases where we strip the sugarcoating and go straight to what actually happened, then this is the part where you act. Subscribe right now. Turn on all notifications so the next time a case like this cracks open after decades, you are here from the first second. Leave your thoughts in the comments, not just about the crime, but about the systems around it. Because if there is one thing this case proves, it is this. You can drive to work, you can raise kids, you can pretend the past is dead. But sooner or later, the past learns your name. And sometimes, like in Albany, the name it answers with is the one the city gave to the child you tried to erase. Baby Moses.